You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep030. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Like when Spock had to fight Kirk on Star Trek. Best friends forced to do battle. The name is Spock. If we don't battle to the death, they will kill us both.
This isn't Star Trek!
Goodbye, Jim.
Hello and welcome back to the Tricorder Transmissions. This is the start of our Season 2 coverage, and I am very, very excited. I am Craig Cohen, and as always, I have with me Jeff Hewlett.
How's it going, man?
All right, man. This is great.
Yeah, it's good to be back. And we kind of took 2 weeks and did some Season 1 wrap-up, so it's been a little bit strange to not be doing the regular episodes every Sunday.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool. It was kind of like almost like a palate cleanser.
Yeah, sort of was. You kind of cleared our head, kind of went back over all the stuff we had talked about previously, had some fun with that. And
put any outstanding issues to bed.
Yeah, we did.
Well, no, it's always good, I think, after you wrap a season, you do all the necessary house cleaning.
Of course.
And housekeeping you need to do to make sure that our listeners can look back at that season coverage and everything is neat and tidy and, a full representation of our coverage.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree completely. So it's, it was a nice way to end cap it. And now I feel refreshed.
Yeah, me too. And hey, it's been a pretty exciting week in Star Trek news for me, mainly for one reason. And I'm not sure if you heard about this yet. We devoted a lot of time last season to the classic Star Trek episode, The City on the Edge of Forever. And now IDW Comics, the comic publisher, are going to be doing a 3-issue adaptation of Harlan Ellison's award-winning teleplay.
Yeah, I know. I saw this and I thought to myself immediately, what perfect timing.
Yeah, right?
We just literally did that episode, a few weeks back, and here it is. And we did a lot of talking about Ellison's original screenplay and the differences between, what eventually made it to air and what was in the original screenplay. So this is going to be kind of cool that we're going to actually get to see this, mysterious, iconic screenplay kind of played out.
Yeah, and I saw some sample pages from it. They didn't have the dialogue or anything or the lettering done yet. There was Beckwith and, the Jewels of Sound. So it was pretty neat. It's going to be written by the team of Scott and David Tipton with interior artwork by J.K. Woodward. But the really cool thing is Juan Ortiz, our often talked about Juan Ortiz, is going to be doing the covers for each issue.
Yeah, imagine that. You kind of start doing this as a hobby and drawing those vintage style posters for every episode. Next thing you know, you're getting brought into the fold.
Yeah. So it's very cool. I'm looking forward to it. They're going to start in June. And I got a quick quote from Harlan Ellison here.
Oh, neat.
He said, "It was a superlative joy of my long life to have worked with Leonard Nimoy, who became my friend, and many others at Star Trek. And an equally heart-happy joy to be working with J.K. and the Tipton brothers and Chris Ryan on Ryle on this long-awaited visual of my, humbly I say, brilliant original city. So Harlan is excited as well, which is always good. If you get on Harlan's good side, good things follow.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that this script is finally getting to see the light of day, because it's been talked about, and it's been a kind of subject of controversy in the classic Trek universe.
Yeah, and I assume when it's all said and done, when all 3 issues have been published and we've had a chance to read them as a complete story, I'm sure we'll devote some time to either in an intro talk about it, or maybe even devote a full episode to it. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it might be deserving of a full supplemental episode.
Yeah, we could make it like a true Stardate one, where we could go back to the City on the Edge of Forever supplemental we do and do a point 1.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe we could get April back to talk about it some more.
Oh yeah,
that would be kind of cool.
Excellent. So I'm sure that's not the only Star Trek news this week, though.
Oh, of course not. There are a couple of other interesting things to talk about. And as much as we'd like to think we have finally put Into Darkness to bed, it appears we have not.
Uh-oh.
So, we had done a lot of talking in an intro a while back about the horribly splintered way the bonus features for that movie were, peppered across all of the different mediums.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible. You had iTunes exclusives, Target exclusives, Best Buy exclusives. Yeah, just a terrible, terrible situation.
Yeah, so somebody went ahead and wrote up some quick synopses of the deleted scenes, and this in itself is not exciting to talk about, but what I did think was exciting to talk about was where exactly those deleted scenes were released, and you could only get them in one place. Are you ready for this? They were only available already via the Xbox Smart Glass second screen app from the digital copy of the movie if you purchase it through the Xbox Video Store.
Ugh. Can I throw up now?
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So there are quite a few scenes. I don't have, full paragraphs on each, but I have brief descriptions. So there's a scene where they explain Carol Marcus's British accent.
Okay.
Which I think I might have liked to have seen.
Yeah.
Considering her father didn't have one.
Yeah.
There was apparently a scene where the father of the sick girl meets up with Admiral Marcus.
Okay.
So I guess they chop that out. And there's some more of Uhura talking to the Klingons. There was apparently more of the Klingon fight with the Enterprise team. So they cut that out. Why, I don't know. And there somehow, somewhere, Kirk supposedly falsified a captain's log that got cut out. So I wonder what that's about. And let's see, there's some, Scotty talking to some hangar control guys. And then the much talked about daughter who was brought back to life or cured with the use of Khan's blood, meeting up with Kirk at the end of the film.
Oh.
So I guess somebody out there will likely put these on YouTube or something, and maybe we can actually get to see them before they get taken down. But I certainly am not going to purchase this movie on my Xbox.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't even have an Xbox.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that's strange to me is that, why would they limit something like deleted scenes to only people who have Xboxes? There must have been some kind of a Microsoft kickback to the studio for that exclusive.
Yeah, and that's a huge expense for somebody, a lot of times you'd be like, okay, if it's a Blu-ray only exclusive, that might be incentive for somebody to, finally upgrade to Blu-ray. I doubt a lot of people ran out and bought an Xbox so they could do the second screen experience so they could watch these deleted scenes.
Yeah, I highly doubt that too. But what's eventually going to happen sometime?
Oh, they're going to put out the Mondo.
Yeah, they'll put out a monster box or something with all the crap in it, and then you'll be pissed because you bought all the individual ones, and you could have just bought the $29.99 deluxe edition that's going to come out.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, enough of that Into Darkness stuff. Hopefully, it won't rear its head again. And one final piece of news, which I think is really cool, and it appears that Nichelle Nichols is going to be she already got it by now, an Essence Champion Award, which it was to celebrate legendary performers who served as champions of the civil rights movement.
Oh, cool.
So I guess we've talked about it before, and we haven't gotten to the iconic third season episode yet with the kiss scene around the world, the first interracial kiss. So I think it's great that Star Trek is able to impact society through its message and through Gene Roddenberry's vision of this future where all races and classes and creeds work together for a common goal.
Yeah, that's excellent. Congratulations to Nichelle.
Yeah. So that about wraps up the news section. We have our air dates as usual. Mm-hmm. So Amok Time originally aired on September 15th of 1967, and we got our remaster on February 17th of 2007.
And our quick summary: suffering through his first infliction of Pon farr, the Vulcan biological mating urge, Spock must return to Vulcan to marry his betrothed, or he will die. However, when the Enterprise arrives at Vulcan, complications at the ceremony may endanger Captain Kirk as well.
Wow, that's pretty good synopsis. Gives quite a bit of it away. And it kind of leads me into one more thing I wanted to mention.
All right.
Before we start watching this episode. Now, I know we talked about these things before on the show, and I sure a lot of the original series fans know out there that all of the Star Trek episodes when they originally aired had preview trailers that ran the week before, so you give you a teaser about what the next week's episode was. Mm-hmm. And I always like to go back and look at them and just to see, because I like to try to put myself in the position of, what it was like to be actually watching these as they aired. I just kind of like to think about that sometimes, and especially since we watched them in the original running order, we kind of simulate almost what it was like. And I figured, let me run back and watch the preview trailer for this just to see what audiences were thinking before this episode actually did air. And you know what? As good as this episode is, I have to say they gave away every freaking surprise in this trailer. I was like, my mind was boggled. You pretty much knew exactly what happened in the entire episode by watching the trailer. Like every possible surprise was spoiled.
Yeah, and that's really crazy because, the first 25 minutes of this episode are pretty much a build to the reveal of what the heck is going on.
It boggles my mind. And, I'm thinking, in the era that we live in now, there are shows that I watch, and one particular show is The Walking Dead, and the trailers that they put out like maybe a 10, 15, 20-second snippet of the episode, the week prior to it coming out. And they don't really give you much of anything. It really, they try to engineer those things to be real cliffhangers, like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah.
But there's the shift in mentality from the 60s to today where they were just pretty much giving away the entire episode. You almost didn't need to watch it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, might as well just jump right into the episode, huh?
All right, I'm ready.
All right. So let's get started with our scene-specific commentary in 3, 2, 1.
And what a familiar sight that is.
Yeah, the first flyby of season 2.
Yes.
And look at this. The first character you see in season 2 is Kirk, followed by McCoy.
Mm-hmm. And we get like sort of a, almost like an Aaron Sorkin inspired a walk and talk.
Yeah.
I'd imagine a young Aaron Sorkin might have been sitting at home and he's like, hey, that was pretty cool when, McCoy and Kirk, did their little walk and talk. Although they're not doing too much walking here, but
no,
it reminded me of like one of those scenes off like, one of those Aaron Sorkin shows.
Yeah, Kirk must be a really hands-on captain because instead of using the turbo lift, he climbed up that awkward ladder shaft thing.
Yeah, well, that's how you keep the physique that he has.
Yeah, I guess so. Now we find out that Nurse Chapel knows how to cook Vulcan soup.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So they imply that she actually made this soup. So that implies all sorts of other things. Like, number one, she knows how to cook Vulcan recipes. Number two, they actually... Oh, look, the nameplate on Spock's door says Commander Spock, by the way.
Okay,
it's a
nice catch.
Yeah, little confirmation of his rank. But anyway, like, they stock the ingredients to make Vulcan soup on the Enterprise.
Yeah, I assume she just went to the food replicator or whatever and... punched up the ingredients she needed and then went from there.
Oh, and there's the legendary bowl throw.
Yeah. And I love this moment where Spock comes out, very, very emotional. And when he sees Kirk, his mood kind of shifts a little bit.
Yeah, he becomes a little less enraged.
Yeah.
So you get like this respectful rage.
Yeah. And he's very stern when he basically puts out kind of an outrageous demand.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty effective end to the stinger. You're kind of left thinking, whoa. Because you've never really seen Spock get that kind of, kind of irate and demanding. Usually he's pretty respectful of Kirk. So pretty interesting stuff. And you notice when McCoy is describing Spock's attitude and his threat from earlier, that he does a really interesting Spock impression.
Yes.
He kind of starts to imitate Spock. So you got a little bit of an impressionist going there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Now, I'd imagine that this was kind of a jarring stinger coming off of, the summer break for the season. But I was curious. I mean, this is all part of one 5-year mission.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever dug through and established how much time there were between, Operation Annihilate and this episode?
I think if you go back through and look at it in Stardate order, they're actually mixed up in a different way. So I don't know if they were sequential.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, and this is cool because you once you come back from the opening credits, you're kind of put right back into the same place they took you out of.
Yeah.
So, and notice how you can see there's like a knife in Spock's hands. He's got a knife just behind his back.
Yeah, that you can see he's hiding out from Kirk too.
Yeah, he's kind of spinning it around in his hand. You wonder what his intention is.
Yeah, I almost thought it was something that he would possibly use to, like, sort of maybe poke himself with if he found himself getting really out of line.
Yeah, maybe.
Like a sharp sort of, jab into your lower back or your thigh, not enough to pierce the skin or, cause damage, but to sort of, snap you out of, possibly a very, very highly emotional state.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. I didn't feel scared for Kirk is my point.
Good point. I didn't think of it that way. But did you notice that for the most of the conversation, he was not making eye contact?
Yeah.
With Kirk, he was just kind of diverting and looking off in another direction. I mean, he is now, but it seemed like when Kirk was asking them the questions at the beginning, he just didn't want to look him in the eye.
Yeah.
And this is pretty cool because Kirk's going to look over. He's going to glance behind Spock's back here. And he's going to see the knife.
Yeah.
But he's not going to react to it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So you have to wonder what he's thinking.
Yeah. And Spock lays out a pretty good argument here. He says, I've accrued probably, more leave time than anybody else in Starfleet. So let me take my leave.
He's a workaholic.
He wants to go home. Yeah.
Total workaholic.
One thing I want to point out before we get too deep into this episode is the music throughout this episode.
Oh yeah.
I know the music towards the end of this episode is very, very iconic.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was done by Gerald Fried. I couldn't find out if he had done the music for the entire episode, although it looks like he did, but he seems to get most of the credit for the fight sequences. But the music throughout this episode is exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very memorable, and there's a lot of great mysterious sounding guitar pangs here and there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pause for a second here because
debut.
You're going to see a big debut here in a second. Right after Kirk gets his orders to go to Altair instead of going to Vulcan. So you're waiting for Mr. Spock to get angry about this because I guess he's going to realize here that they're not going to go to Vulcan as Kirk had planned. And there's the name, Mr. Chekhov, and there's the wig.
Yeah, that's
Chekhov and his Davy Jones wig. That's a terrible wig.
Davy Jones-ish.
Yeah, that is a very, very bad wig.
Yeah. And you know what I kind of like about his introduction is, now, all these years removed, it's like, wow, there's the first appearance of Chekhov. Here, I like how they would just plopped him in that chair and introduced him almost to make us assume that he had been performing a function on the ship somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like they already knew him, and we were already just supposed to accept that he's just there. You know, we've seen other people in and out of that chair all through the first season. It was very, very inconsistent. And all of a sudden, here's this Chekhov guy. And as you watch this episode, he's actually going to get a lot of lines. He's going to appear quite a bit. So he's going to appear again here on this monitor. Kirk's going to turn on the monitor and call the bridge. And there he is, Chekhov here. And he's getting more lines. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he's already getting more screen time than anybody who else who was sitting in that chair. And funny thing I was thinking when I was watching this before is that he's getting more lines and screen time than Sulu.
Yeah, yeah. Now, where is this camera that he's talking into?
That's always a good question. I always wonder where these cameras are when these people are like when Uhura's showing up on a little monitor like that. I mean, what she, and maybe it's in the console in front of her.
Yeah.
But the way Chekhov was facing, you know, he wasn't looking down into a console.
Yeah, yeah.
So very strange. So now we're finding out that, and look, Chekhov jumps up and takes Mr. Spock's station without even being asked to do it.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those cases where, you know, Chekhov is such a, you know, sort of, you know, loved character, but it's kind of cool that there was, you know, a network push to sort of add, you know, a teen heartthrob into the mix.
Yeah. So they're trying to get young girls into Star Trek.
But, you know, I mean, that's one of those things where, you know, the network sort of, you know, indirectly really sort of injected and added something really interesting into the, you know, the ingredients, you know, that make up Star Trek.
Yeah, they added a character who remains for the rest, not only the rest of this show, but all of the movies, and he's been in subsequent things, and now they're putting out another, you know, series on the web that features Chekhov. So that Star Trek Renegades thing.
Yeah.
So you're still going to see him as Chekhov, albeit a much older Chekhov, but he's still part of the Star Trek lexicon. I mean, you know, a character who was added to give an element of Davy Jones to the show, you know, becomes a series and movie staple.
Mm-hmm. Now that this won't be the only monkeys connection on this episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You have me intrigued on that,
oh, right.
sir. So wait until it happens, right?
Yes.
So significant stuff just happened, though, in the turbo lift scene. So Spock is asking Kirk to lock him away. You know, he's that worried about himself. And instead, Kirk sent him to sickbay. Now he's kind of meandering on in to sickbay. You're going to get a really great exchange between McCoy and Spock here. So, you know, Spock says, you know, he's ordered to sickbay. Now he's going to turn around and leave again because that's what he was ordered to do. And, you know, McCoy isn't going to let him leave. But McCoy says something really strange here that it kind of caught me a little off guard. He says, you know, come on, Spock, yield to the logic of the situation.
Yeah, he's almost like sort of, pandering to him?
Yeah, I mean, it that just didn't seem like a very McCoy line to me. I don't know. And I like this tight shot of Spock's hand kind of quivering against the side of the bed there.
Yeah, I mean, we're really getting a feel that Spock does not have control of himself.
Yeah, and here we go. A little Sulu and Chekhov comedy moment here. You know, Sulu's going to get, Chekhov's going to get space sick from all the course changes.
Yeah. Now, and how perfect did that shot look with the two of them there?
It was great.
That bridge finally felt complete.
Yeah, and they had a rapport already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now we just get part of the reveal that Spock is going to die in 7 to 8 days max.
Yeah.
And we fade the commercial. So this episode has some really great commercial cliffhangers.
Yeah. Great pacing. And this episode was written by science fiction legend Theodore Sturgeon, who we've watched another episode of the highly debated first season episode Shore Leave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So here he was involved in a very, very iconic episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, one of the most iconic, I think. This is a very remembered and beloved episode. So McCoy is giving Kirk the rundown, telling him about all of the things that are up with Spock, and he equates it to having large amounts of adrenaline pumped into your system. And I guess you can imagine what that would do to a human body.
Yeah.
And I think Kirk is really brave what he's about to do. He just saw Spock with a knife in his hand and unsure of what he was going to do. And he's still going to march right back into Spock's quarters and further interrogate him.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing a picture of a little Vulcan girl.
Yeah.
That is the first appearance of another Vulcan besides Spock.
Oh, wow.
Very the first time we've seen another one.
Yeah.
So I think this is actually a really brave thing that Kirk is doing, because we've seen Spock overpower Kirk easily in other episodes before. And, you can tell that Spock is becoming unhinged.
Yeah.
He's throwing bowls of food. He's being very antagonistic and angry, and he's had the knife in his hand again.
Yeah. But I think this really speaks to the character that is Jim Kirk, in the sense that,
sure.
In addition to his duties as a captain, he's also interacting with Spock here, as a friend.
Yeah, exactly. He's, I think that it's really concern for Spock more than, anger at a fellow crew member or a subordinate. I think he's genuinely concerned with what's up with Spock, and the fact that Spock won't talk about it, and even now he's finally starting to crack and talk a little bit about what's going on with him. And we're going to find out that it is the Pon Farr. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as the episode goes on. But I think it's very interesting when we get to this Pon Farr part here to mention that when this episode was going to be shown in Germany, they deemed that Pon Farr was too risque for television. And the episode was actually recut and edited down to be quite a different episode. So
I'd imagine so.
Yeah, so it was more like Dr. McCoy had given Spock some kind of medicine that had an adverse effect and drove him kind of crazy. And the subsequent scenes of his being violent and the scenes on Vulcan of him and Kirk fighting were hallucinations.
Wow. Can you imagine being a German Trek fan and coming over to the States at some point and maybe catching this show in syndication and being like, what the heck is this? Yeah,
I'd be a little bit concerned. I think, what the hell did I see? But I also would love to see the actual German version of this and see how, because they recut and re-edited it around, and they gave Spock what they called space fever. They call it Weltrum fiber, I think. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it was actually translates to space fever. So
that's neat. I had never heard that before.
Yeah, I didn't either until I started doing some research into this episode. I thought it was a really interesting tidbit.
Now, I got to tell you, in this scene, we see the iconic, and I've pointed this out every time I see it in sick bay or anywhere else, but that awesome, like, Star Trek, like, blanket.
Yep.
Or bed sheet. Spock has it draped over his chair.
Yep.
I'm telling you, man, I gotta get this.
I'm sure you can get it.
I mean, that is awesome. I mean, I would love to have that, lining my couch.
Next time I come over to your place, I fully expect to see that there.
Oh man, that's putting a lot of pressure on me.
Well, sometimes somebody has to put the pressure on you to get things done. That may motivate you a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those itches that I think is really going to eventually have to be scratched.
Yep, I don't doubt it. You got to feed that hunger, man. So I have a question for you.
All right, I love questions.
I have a question. So I was thinking about this, and I'm sure that this has been discussed elsewhere before, but I've never been part of a conversation about this. And if any Trek fans who listen to the show want to chime in, please do. I was wondering to myself, Pon Farr is a Vulcan thing. So it's, the Vulcan mating, and their blood boils, I guess they get very, they act erratically. It strips away their logic and it lets their emotional primal sides through. But my question was, would Spock's half-human side lessen the effects of Pon Farr? Why would Spock's Pon Farr be different? Because it seems to be the same as all the other Vulcans. But I was wondering why that wouldn't, his half-human blood wouldn't change that Ponfar experience for him.
Yeah, and that's an interesting question overall, because Spock doesn't look any different than the other Vulcans we're going to encounter in this episode. So there isn't even really a trace of his humanity, or any identifying feature that would indicate that he is half human.
True.
So that's an interesting point I never really thought about.
Yeah, maybe the Vulcan genes are far more dominant than Spock, and that's why it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. And he still seems to have, if you think about all the Vulcan abilities, I mean, he's got the strength and the mental discipline and the inner eyelids and the mental special powers. So you have to wonder, how much of that human is actually having any effect on his overall life other than the stigma of being half human. So.
Yeah, that is an excellent, point that I never really thought about.
Yeah. Another Chekhov and Sulu humor moment there. And there's the Vulcan harp.
Yes.
Yep.
Which we saw in season 1.
Yep, we did.
I believe it was Charlie X we saw it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here's another iconic scene of Spock smashing the hell out of that monitor.
Oof.
With his bare hand. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty cool.
So we've got like this mission that the Enterprise is on, where they have to get to this planet for some political ceremony.
Yeah, there's they've had a conflict, some interplanetary conflict, and the appearance of Starfleet ships will solidify Altair's position. And it's funny because the guy, the Starfleet commander on the screen just said that it'll send ripples all the way to the Klingon Empire. So they're name dropping the Klingons.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Uh-huh. Now, was this a plot point that you felt served any real purpose other than it was the right amount of conflict that they needed to, get us to, basically kill some time?
I think when I'm looking at this, the way I looked at it was that the only real purpose that this served was to put Kirk in a position where he had to choose between his career and his friendship with Spock.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because that I felt that as well, but it felt like they really sort of chinsed out at the end.
By big time, big time.
It actually might be, yeah.
That's it. I don't want to spoil it now, but the ending part where he's absolved was actually changed from the original script.
Oh, cool.
There was a different reason for it. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Because, this might be in my opinion, one of the most sort of unforgivable sort of little, let's wrap this up with a neat little bow type of Star Trek moments.
Absolutely. I agree. And I thought the same thing. But, another question I had for you, in the scene just prior to the one we're seeing now with Nurse Chapel and Spock, you had McCoy and Kirk listening to this message from Starfleet, and, Kirk is ready to throw his career on the line and take Spock to Vulcan, and McCoy is actually kind of admonishing him for not following orders. So is McCoy just kind of resolved to letting Spock die just to follow the orders? I thought that was kind of weird because he's usually the emotional one.
Yeah, you'd almost think that the roles would have been possibly flipped there.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by his behavior. When he's, kind of telling Kirk he's crazy for disobeying orders.
Yeah, I guess somebody had to say those words so the audience got a feel for how serious Kirk's decision was.
Yeah, I guess so. And I guess we're getting much more confirmation now of Nurse Chapel's feelings for Mr. Spock.
Yeah.
As she's she's pretty emotionally unstable here at the thought of him being on the verge of dying, and she's really happy that they're taking him to Vulcan. So she's gonna make him some more soup.
And is this the scene where he revealed to her that he has a wife?
No,
Okay, it's
no,
later.
that's on the bridge a little bit later.
Right. Yeah, that was a really great scene, though. I mean,
Great scene.
You know, you get to see an emotional scene involving Spock, which is always interesting.
Yeah, and he's very compassionate.
Majel Barrett, you know, turns in a great performance as well.
Oh, for sure. I love the compassion that Spock shows. I mean, in his own way, you know, his own kind of semi-cold, logical way, but he still shows some compassion for her. Yeah. And he dries the tear from her face, and you know, he understands how she feels, and actually asks her if she would be willing to make him more of that soup.
Now, did you notice in the elevator shot that was earlier, the lights went from left to right before they started going up and down?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And I always wondered what direction the turbo lift really goes in, because the piece of the ship that connects the bridge to the fuselage is angled.
Yeah.
So it can't go straight up and down, but I guess it goes sideways and then up.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever caught it. It does, you know, it goes left to right for a couple seconds before they started going up. So that's kind of neat. That's something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and you know, in the turbo lift, that Spock had asked Kirk and McCoy if they would come down and be his friends and stand beside him during this ceremony. So that's pretty cool, I think. Yeah. Significant moments, almost like asking, you know, someone to be your best man or in your groom's party at your wedding. Yeah. Now, can you imagine if we had Scotty in this shot here? How perfect it would have been? Oh, it would have been awesome. You would have had just about everybody represented in one shot. And here is the big reveal. To Pring. Yep. So this is Spock's wife, and he's going to reveal the big bombshell that he's already been betrothed to somebody. Yeah. And this is actress Arlene Martell, born in the Bronx in 1936, and we actually share a birthday. Wow. I wasn't born in 1936, obviously, but our actual, the day we celebrate is the same. So this year, when my birthday comes around, I'll be thinking of Arlene when I blow out my candles. And this is our Monkees connection. She had 2 appearances on the Monkees. I should have remembered that. I was a big Monkees fan. And also appeared on 5 episodes of Hogan's Heroes as Tiger. Aha. And she had a bunch of other appearances, including I Dream of Jeannie, The Fugitive, Twilight Zone, and also another Star Trek connection. She was in the classic Outer Limits episode, The Demon with the Glass Hand, written by Harlan Ellison. Oh, very cool. Wow. What a tangled web. Yeah. She's everywhere. And now we've got some excellent remastered effects. Yeah, I love these remastered Surface of Vulcan shots, and you can see them kind of walking towards that circle of stones. Yeah. Yeah, that was a really, really well done set of redone effects. Yeah. So this is really cool. The Surface of Vulcan. Yeah, and you see like the red sky. Yeah, and I love this set. Oh, it's tremendous. I really love this set. They went over and above with this all the interesting old architecture, like the red, dark brown red stone, and these strange objects hanging on the wall with the little polygons dangling from strings, and you can imagine when the wind blows through, you'll hear them kind of chiming like wind chimes. Yeah, it definitely feels like an alien world. Oh, for sure. And McCoy says, "Oh, hot as Vulcan. Now I know what it means." So there's a saying, "It's as hot as Vulcan." So I guess we now know that Vulcan is a hot place. I guess the name might imply that if you take Vulcan to mean volcanic or volcano-like or something of that nature. I guess that kind of maybe is derivative from that. Yeah. But so Spock rings some kind of a strange-looking gong, and the wedding party is approaching. So very interesting. And so now we find out that Vulcan marriages are arranged. Yeah. While they were 7 years old. Wow. Yeah. So I assume the picture he was looking at a picture of his wife when she was a child? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And I thought this was another interesting thing about this episode is we finally hear some Vulcan words. Oh, yeah. Vulcan language. So you got Ponfar, you've got with his Kunukalifi? Kunukalifi, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but that's the marriage or challenge ritual that's going to be happening. So, and there's a couple of other things when... Yeah, and we're going to have a really big moment in... huge.
in a couple seconds.
Yeah, talk about an iconic Star Trek recurring character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to ring the gong yet again with that really strange looking hammer. It's got like a green head on it. Yeah. You know what I wondered about this scene, Craig? Maybe you can shed some light on this.
I hope I can.
Why is it that it's all ritual? It's this 2,000-year-old ritual, and you know how these guys are all dressed in these costumes and you know with their special instruments, and Spock doesn't have to get into any sort of a ceremonial outfit. Like his Starfleet uniform is good enough.
Oh wow, yeah. You know, that is. Yeah, I guess the ritual doesn't require that.
I guess not.
Yeah.
So we had the entrance of T'Pau.
Yeah, and she's a big deal.
Huge deal, and she's, according to Kirk, the only person to ever turn down a seat in something called the Federation Council.
Yeah.
So I guess the first time we've heard of the Federation Council.
Yeah.
And the first time we've seen that really weird black mask that Vulcan guy's wearing. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah.
It was a really weird black, almost looks like almost like, it's hard to describe what the heck that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a black blade type thing. And there's T'Pau is giving Spock a mind meld. I guess she needs to check and see if he's truly ready for the ritual.
Yeah. And this is actress Celia Lovsky, an Austrian actress, born in 1897, died in 1979.
Wow.
And she was an actress who was married to Peter Lorre.
Wow.
For an 11-year period from 34 to 45.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty
She's
cool.
responsible for getting bringing him to the attention of director Fritz Lang.
Huh.
Yeah. So kind of neat.
Pretty cool tidbits you had there.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. So I think this is pretty cool too, because she called Kirk and McCoy Outworlders.
Yeah.
So is this the first time humans have bore witness to this ritual?
I think so, yeah.
So Kirk and McCoy are the first humans that have ever in the history of Vulcan been allowed to witness this.
Yeah, because I mean earlier, you know, Spock had pretty much indicated that he had already given more information than most humans had ever been privy to.
Yep. Very interesting. I guess that, you know, Kirk and McCoy are extremely privileged to witness something like this.
Although I assume Spock's mom had witnessed this. And that wasn't an arranged marriage either.
No, well, he was well, we won't find this out until later, but, you know, he was an ambassador and he met her off planet. So I'm assuming that they didn't have to go through this ritual at all. But so I guess it's up to you. I wonder how Sarek dealt with his Ponfar.
Yeah, I mean, well, he would have had an arranged marriage.
You would think, and he would go through the same, you know, the boiling of the blood feeling, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So that kind of lends it to another conversation, and this is could be a long one, so we may want to just have a very terse conversation and maybe talk about this on an extended episode when we talk about Vulcans in general.
Yeah.
But T'Pau is going to say, she's going to tell us that Spock is in the blood fever and will stay that way until the ceremony is complete.
Yeah.
So, you know, the blood fever is a physiological thing. It's part of his biology. So you have to wonder, what is the connection between a Vulcan's biology, their actual body and the functions of their body, and this ceremony?
Yeah, I'd assume it's some kind of, you know, Vulcan voodoo that we can't understand.
I guess so, because you would, you know, that would be like some, you know, made up thing, like a song or something, you know, having a physical effect on our body, like curing a cold, right?
Yeah.
You know, like I put on some Kenny G and it cures my flu.
Yeah, and put you to sleep.
Yeah, well, that too. That would probably help if I had the flu.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I maybe something we can talk about in a longer form some other time. But I thought it was a strange thought that came up to me while I was rewatching this episode.
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah. No, that's you've peeled back the onion quite a bit on this episode and come up with some really, really interesting questions.
Yeah. Well, I try to think a little bit more deeply into these things sometimes since we're going to be talking about them. So this is another one of those situations where maybe Chris Ritzer would have an insight on this, but
yeah. So basically now T'Pring has challenged the ceremony.
yeah, she's chosen the challenge instead of the marriage.
Yeah, so basically Spock is going to have to and I guess this ties into the whole blood feud that we were talking about.
He's going to have to fight for her hand.
Yeah.
So, and she's going to have to choose who he fights against, which kind of sets it up for what's to come. But what I think is really funny is another question I was going to ask you if you'd thought about. She chooses Kirk, and it's not really clear exactly what is going to have to, Kirk's going to have to do, right? You think, okay, it's a combat of some sort.
Yeah, well,
but,
and Kirk even, yeah.
Kirk doesn't ask any qualifying questions before accepting the challenge.
Yeah. Well, I think Kirk is rightfully thinking that there's no way that this involves a battle to the death.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you think to, kind of ask, well, what exactly are the rules, or how does it work? Because he just assumes here he's gonna assume that all he has to do is knock Spock out.
Yeah. Or
just win the fight. But this is a ritual. This is an old ritual he knows nothing about.
Yeah, but at the same time, and he even vocalizes this, that he knows that Spock is not at sort of full capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So at least Kirk knows that he can pull punches if he needs to.
But
it is still kind of absurd to, not absurd because I don't think it's beyond the, outside the, the realm of possibility that Kirk didn't think that this was a fight to the death. I mean, I wouldn't leap to that conclusion.
I probably wouldn't have either, but I would at least ask what was expected of me.
Before you make the purchase, you want to read the contract.
Oh, absolutely. And, Kirk is hearing Spock is begging her to Pow to forbid Kirk from participating in this. So you would think if you were Kirk, like, wait, Spock really doesn't want me to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that something would have been a tip off for Kirk there to maybe ask a couple of questions before he took it on. And McCoy is actually going to tell Kirk that it's a hot climate. You're not used to this. You're going to get a little bit of a disadvantage, even with Spock being whatever diminished capacity he's in. You're also going to have some problems.
Yeah.
Because you're not used to the altitude, the air quality, and the heat are a little too much for him, to handle in a fight scenario where he's exerting himself. Because he knows, Spock is still, going to be pretty strong. I don't know.
Yeah.
Couple of thoughts there, but who knows? So you see, Spock is now T'Pau's a little bit annoyed by Spock. She's saying he's kind of shirking his Vulcan heritage by begging.
Yeah.
And he's kind of lowering himself. And there's that cool purple sash they tie around his belt.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
We haven't gotten to the actual moment yet, but you have some collectibles from this actual scene, right?
Yes, I do. I do own the Diamond Select Amok Time figure set. So it's Kirk and Spock and the weapons and the gong
and the shirt ripped away.
Yeah, shirt is ripped away with the slice across his chest, and Spock's got the purple sash. It's pretty cool. I haven't set it up yet. I'm waiting to have a really good place in the office here to set it up, but I plan to as soon as I rearrange some things in here.
Yeah, no, I remember you sent me a picture of that I still have on my phone. Which it's really, really good looking figures. They did a great job with those Diamond Selects. Yeah,
they certainly did. And I have the entire crew on my computer desk here, and I love the editing and camera work in this montage here because
it's like Batman 66.
Yeah, it is, and they're building tension here. Kirk's supposed to be thinking about his decision. And all of there's some flames shooting out, or some smoke shooting out of that hot coals, and you got these guys shaking those little bell things around, and there's some, Spock is doing this weird prayer looking thing. So, and Kirk is kind of nonchalant. He's like, he's like, I can't back out in front of T'Pau. I'm kind of obligated here.
Yeah, he's basically like, I'll knock Spock out, I'll subdue him, and we'll be on our way.
Yep. Now she's calling him out. Kirk, decide. Yeah. He's like, well, what the hell? Why not?
YOLO.
Although
that's not true in Star Trek.
No. Several people go to die and come back to life, except Kirk.
Well, yeah. In the extended universe, he even comes back.
Come on now. And Kirk has accepted, and they're bringing forth the Lurpa. So these are called Lurpa, these weapons with the weight on one end, the big weight on one end, and that kind of half moon blade on the other end. When
they were wrapped up, they made me think of like the weapons they used in American Gladiators when they were on the pedestals. Yeah, the double-headed. They look like the two large weighted heads, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah, I remember those. But those are actually pretty cool looking. Yeah. And I like when Kirk, when it was handed to him, he sold the weight of it. Yeah, he definitely did. He's like, ooh. So do you notice when they open up the blanket coverings on those, Kirk sees that as an actual sharpened blade. And he's like, oops. Yes. Gulp. Now what did I get myself into? And we get the reveal that it's a fight to the death. Yeah. Man, this might be the most memorable commercial cutaways I can think of. Yeah, there's some really great little cliffhangers in there. Every break has been exceptional. That were all completely spoiled by the preview. Yeah, I'm glad. Well, it's funny. I'm gonna have. Is that on this Blu-ray set? Yeah. I'll have to dig that out and watch that because. Yeah. Definitely look at it because you'll be like, wait, what? What? Don't leave anything out. They gotta blade to McCoy's throat. So you better shut your mouth, McCoy. We're gonna cut you. Yeah. Yeah. So look at Spock, man. Look at him. He's like all hunched over. Oh yeah, no, he's ready to go. He's into it, man. Yeah. And so this is that iconic music that's been used and parodied. You might remember the scene in The Cable Guy. Yep. At medieval times. Yep. And there were a couple of Simpsons episodes where they sort of spoof this. Simpsons episodes Deep Space Homer and The Day the Earth Stood Cool, and even a Futurama. Yep, I was going to mention that. Yeah, and then Eddie Murphy even did a Star Trek sketch in his 1983 comedy film Delirious. Yes, he did. I remember that. So very iconic fight scene, and it also kind of answers another question. In his fight between Kirk and Spock, like a real fight. Mano a mano, who would win? I mean, we've seen little kind of, you get the little scuffle in the transporter room. Yeah. From, was it This Side of Paradise? I believe so, yeah. Yeah, and a couple little scuffles here and there, but not a real knockdown, drag out, mano a mano, fight to the death kind of scenario like this one. Yeah. Although this one isn't really fair. No, it's not. But after seeing the other little fights they've had in the past, it's hard for me to completely believe that the blows that Kirk is landing are having such an impact on Spock. Like, he kicks him and he goes flying, Mm-hmm. And we've seen Spock take, open face punches with no effect at all. Yeah. It's interesting. And here, McCoy is going to administer some PEDs. Mm-hmm. Yep, some performance enhancers, man. Yeah, and the Vulcans have no problem with him using performance-enhancing drugs. Yeah, I think the Vulcans are a bit trusting because they fail to check on Kirk's actual life or death status at the end too. They just accept the fact that he's dead. But yeah, you know what? I was thinking about this myself earlier. Kirk he said earlier in the episode, he owes his life to Spock a dozen times over. And he owes his life to McCoy here because if McCoy didn't think quickly, Kirk would have really been dead. Because Spock would have killed him. I'd like to think that Kirk would have found a way around this. No way. Kirk is the guy that he is the king of winning the no-win scenario.
I don't know, man. I don't know, because he has help a lot. That's why. He gets out of things. He has help. I love when they put that strap into Kirk's hand. He looks at it like, what the hell is this thing? What am I supposed to do with it?
It's really a lame weapon.
Oh, it is. It is. It's well, I guess they're old ceremonial, weapons from, times bygone, but this is brutal.
Yeah.
This is brutal. Kirk's landing a couple of punches here, but it looks like Spock's really got the upper hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's got the strap tied around his throat.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, McCoy's medicine sort of does its job almost on cue.
Yeah, exactly the right time. Oh, maybe it was one of those drugs that really takes more of an effect when you're passed out or when you're
where airflow is
right restricted. And,
yeah,
this is great. Like Spock, look, he really understands what he just did. Look at that look on his face. Like he really sells that.
Yeah, yeah. And I can imagine, last season we saw McCoy die.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine people watching this premiere episode of season 2 and saying, "Oh man, are they going to swap out captains on us?"
That's a good observation. Because now that's one thing they didn't do in the preview. They didn't bring him back to life, so they did leave that open.
Wow! So they even show him dying in the preview?
Yeah, they show McCoy says he's dead.
Oh my god!
In the preview.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it leaves very, very little to the imagination, but I think Spock is. I love this. He really understands the gravity of what he's just done.
Well, yeah, I mean, his career is basically over.
Yep, his best friend is dead,
and he lost his best friend, and it's all because of something he did.
Exactly. Well, yeah, you wonder if this was one of those scenarios where in a court-martial situation where he could plead insanity or temporary insanity. I guess he would have to tell them about Pon farr, and they'd have to kind of verify that was the case, that really is true, because no other humans really know about it, right?
I doubt Spock would take that road. I guess McCoy would be the one that would really have to spill the beans.
I guess so. And I love how they just don't check and see if Kirk's actually dead, though.
Yeah, you know what? I guess for purposes of the ceremony, everything that they needed to have done was done.
Mm.
Which makes you think that Kirk could have just played dead.
Yeah, you could think. Yeah. Well, and here's the interrogation. Now, is it me or is T'Pring a real bitch? That's horrible what she did.
Yeah, she definitely looks like a real housewife of Vulcan.
Yeah, but I mean, she specifically targeted Kirk for death.
Yeah.
To get what she wanted, because she wanted to be with the other dude, and she figured, you know what, if I let Strawn, my other boyfriend here, fight, he could die.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to protect Strawn, and I'm going to pick one of Spock's human friends, let Spock kill that guy, and Spock won't want me anymore because I challenged the marriage, and he'll let me go, and I'll live my life with Strawn.
You know what, though?
That's
I mean,
messed up, man.
That's the logical thing to do, though.
I guess.
I mean, she's a Vulcan. Spock even says, "Hey, that's
Yeah, I know. It's just, I don't know. I mean, wouldn't the logical thing to do to just be like, listen to Pal, I want to be with this other dude. Let's just. What's with the emotional trepidation? I mean, why would they hide what they really feel or what they really want? I mean, Vulcans can just say what they want.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's some kind of arranged marriage, you'd assume that has to be binding in some way, or else people would say, "Yeah, I know you arranged this marriage for me." And here we have to break the iconic "Live Long and Prosper" hand gesture. This is the first time we see that.
Yep, and the phrase "Live Long and Prosper." So something that would live on for the entirety of the Star Trek universe up till today and beyond. In fact, Leonard Nimoy signs all of his tweets with LLAP.
Yeah.
Live long and prosper.
And
so.
he came up with that hand gesture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, very interesting that he stayed behind and then beamed up later. You can see they actually, in the remaster, they actually have a long distance shot where you can see him beaming out, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's the stuff I really love about the, these remastered episodes is the real little details that they injected.
Yeah, if you weren't really paying attention, you probably wouldn't notice. This scene that we're seeing here is one of my favorite scenes in all of the original series.
Yeah, Spock's like, I'm going to say this, let me say this. And, McCoy's trying to get him off the hook really quickly.
Yeah, he wants to turn himself over for prosecution.
We have that great Jim moment.
Yeah, great stuff. And I love how Spock kind of just like, whoa, he remembers himself. Like, Oh, pleased to see you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
It is a great feel-good moment.
It really is. I love how they have these little bits of heart injected into the show. So, I mean, it takes itself really seriously, but at the same time, it has a real string of true emotion in it. And then if you really like these characters, you can really feel the relationship between them,
Yeah.
I think it's great. And you see how happy Spock is, and they give Spock the rundown on exactly how they got away with it. So McCoy was pretty slick in giving Kirk a little bit of a knockout drug.
Yeah, what do you call it? It was a relaxer of some kind, or
that it simulated death.
Yeah.
So very, very cool. So I think this moment for the three of them is a very, very iconic moment in the history of Trek. Oh, and here's that moment you were talking about before where
Kirk really wasn't breaking any kind, or wasn't defying any kind of orders.
Yeah, so
a delayed response to the request for diversion to Vulcan.
Yeah. So in the original script, it was a little bit different, and it was the commanding officer or the guy in charge on Altair actually excused Kirk. They let him do his thing and on Vulcan, and kind of excused him by saying, you can show up a little bit later. It's okay, kind of thing. So it wasn't quite the same as it is, in this episode. It was a little bit more, kind of almost the same, but a little bit. Yeah.
Different. Either way, it's a cop out.
Yeah. So.
Wow, and here we are.
Yep, we are at the end of the episode already.
Wow, that flew by.
It certainly did. So I guess we can do our essential voting. I don't think it's really hard to guess how we're gonna fall on this one.
Yeah.
But I think this is pretty much a no-brainer. There's so many firsts in this episode.
We can run down the list together right now.
Yeah, so let's...
Chekhov.
Yep, Chekhov, big one. You got Ponfar.
Yeah.
You got some Vulcan language bits. You got T'Pau's introduction. You've got, if you want to count this, you've got the establishment of the Vulcan female names beginning with T.
Yes.
You've got the Live Long and Prosper salute. You've got the Live Long and Prosper phrase. No Scotty in this episode.
Yeah.
But, and you've got, again, and like, you don't really even need them, but you've got all these iconic character moments for the three of them.
That clearly makes this a double essential vote.
Huge.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
What a strong way to start season 2.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if they had done it in production order, Cat's Paw would have been first.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've come to the end of our first episode of season 2, and I'm happy to be back here, and we'll be back again next week, right, Craig?
I can't wait.
Yep, it's going to be awesome. So we'll see you all then. Thanks for listening.
Now, what about this? The famous Vulcan hand salute. How did that start? We were doing an episode called Amok Time. Spock had to get back to his home planet of Vulcan because as a child he'd been betrothed in marriage, and now it was time to fulfill that commitment. We arrived on the planet, the three key figures, Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, and Dr. McCoy, and we were greeted by a procession coming out from the city. When the procession arrived, we discovered that Vulcan is a matriarchy. The head of the planet is being brought out, carried in a sedan chair by some bearers. The character was named T'Pau, played by Celia Lofsky, wonderful actress. And she was to be seated, and I was to approach her, and we were to say some nice things to each other. And I thought, here's a special opportunity to create something special in the way of a Vulcan greeting, some kind of a signal that they have between each other. And I said to the director, humans shake hands when they meet, and military people salute each other. He asked me what I had in mind. I was raised in an Orthodox Jewish family, and during the high holidays, I'd go to temple with my parents. I'd sit with my father and my brother, and at a particular point during the service, the Kohanim, who are the priests of the Hebrew tribes, would bless the congregation with a blessing that's familiar to all of us from the Old and New Testament. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and so forth. When that time comes during this ritual, the congregation turns their back and does not look at these men. I'm not sure of the reason for that, but in any case, children are taught not to look at the Kohanim while they're performing this blessing. My father would say, don't look, turn away. And of course, being a curious 8 or 9-year-old child, I peeked. What I saw was this. These gentlemen were holding their hands in this position while they were giving this benediction to the congregation. I've never been able to find out for sure exactly why they do that, but I think it probably has to do with the fact that this is the shape of the letter Shin in the Hebrew alphabet. And the Shin is the first letter in the word Shaddai, which means the Almighty. And these gentlemen are probably using a symbol of the Almighty's name in blessing the congregation. I was fascinated. I thought, I've got to learn how to do that. And I worked long and hard to accomplish it. So now I suggested to the director that perhaps Vulcans do that when they greet. He was intrigued, liked the idea, and he went to Celia Lofsky, the actress in the scene, explained to her what we would do. She would be carried in, sat down, she would raise her hand in salute, I would respond. The problem was that Celia couldn't do it. Something like that is what we got. So we worked at it pretty hard. We figured out a way through a kind of a simple camera trick to get it done. The camera moved in fairly close on her, and below the camera frame, just as I'm doing now, she got her right hand into the proper position. And when the time came, she was ready. She got that hand up there, and the Vulcan hand salute was born.